Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Would You Read It Challenge video for March 2026. The Would You Read It Challenge was a meme started by Et2Brody, and I'll link to their information down below. The original meme was to read just the first sentence of a variety of gaggle of books that you choose for whatever reason, and then you ask your audience if they would continue with said book. I thought that one sentence was a little too little to actually ascertain a book's worth, so I elongated it to a few paragraphs to a page or so. And I have been doing this tag myself, or this meme myself, for several months on my own. And I'll link to my playlist down below of book tags. And I have been using old ballots of the BookTube Prize as my template, particularly in the fiction division. So the BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard back in 2019 as a way for the literary community to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction published in the US the year before in English. And so this is our way of deciding what we think are the best of the best. And we start with long lists of 48 books per division. And so I have been going to long lists of yesteryear in order to at least consider the first couple pages of every book in the fiction division. And I am currently doing this, in chronological order up to the year 2023 and ballot B. This is a nice way to actually talk about the BookTube Prize in a way I can talk about the BookTube Prize, because as an official 2026 judge right now, I can't talk about the personal books I'm reading for the prize. So it's nice to go back and, revisit the old ones. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting a little bit repetitive. And I am a little concerned, too, that I chose too large of segments anyway to read from, so I might ramble on a bit, although I wanted to give all these books a fair shot. When it comes to this ballot, I haven't read any of these books yet before, so this is my first time assessing them. I'm going to just read each segment aloud to you now, say the book title, go through them all, and then give my thoughts at the end. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with book number 1. Part 1. September 1996. The first week. It was dark when I got to Cambridge. I pulled my mother's suitcase over the cobblestones toward the river. Riley had been mad when we were assigned to Mather, not to one of the historical ivy-colored brick buildings where young men had lived in ancient times with their servants. But I wasn't into history, so I liked that the rooms in Mather were all singles, and nobody had to figure out how to share an irregularly sized suite where people had lived with their servants. I hadn't spoken to Ivan since July, when we said goodbye in a parking lot on the Danube. We hadn't exchanged phone numbers, since we were both going to be traveling, and anyway, we never had talked much over the phone. But I had never doubted that when I got back to school, I would find an email from him explaining everything. It was not, after all, conceivable that there was no explanation, or that the explanation could come from anyone else, or that it could come in any other way other than email, since that was how everything had always happened between us. Mather resembled an alien starship, impregnable, simultaneously ancient and futuristic, gathering its powers. I held my ID card in front of the reader, and the door to the computer room clicked open. I found myself remembering a book I'd read where a woman looked into a mirror for the first time after 7 years in a gulag, and the face looking back at her wasn't her own, but that of her mother. I immediately recognized how shameful, self-important, and obtuse it was for me, an American college student who hadn't checked an email in 3 months, to compare herself to a political prisoner who had spent 7 years in a gulag. But it was too late. I'd already thought of it. I mistyped my password twice before I got it right. Information started cascading down the screen. First about the computer itself, and then about the different protocols it was using, and then about when and where it had last seen me. And finally, the sentence that sent a jolt to my heart: "You have new mail." Ivan's name was there, just as I had known it would be. Before reading the message, though, I had looked at all of it at once to see how long it was and what it was like. Right away, I could tell that something was wrong. "So something is wrong," I read. I saw the words shocked and monster. "I am very shocked that you see me as such a monster," it said. "I know you won't believe anything I say, and I hope you will tell me why I am so horrible so I can defend myself." And that was from Either Or by Elif Batuman. Book 2. You cannot cut an apple with an apple. You cannot cut an orange with an orange. You can, if you have a knife, cut an apple or an orange, or slice open the underbelly of a fish. Or, if your hands are steady enough and the blade is sharp enough, sever an umbilical cord. You can slash a book. There are different ways to measure depth, but not many readers measure a book's depth with a knife, making a cut from the first page all the way down to the last. Why not, I wonder? You can hand the knife to another person, betting with yourself how deep a wound he or she is willing to inflict. You can be the inflictor of the wound. One half orange plus another half orange do not make the orange full again. And that is where my story begins. An orange that did not think itself good enough for an orange, and an orange that never dreamed of turning itself into a knife. Cut and be cut, neither interested me back then. And then there's a break. My name is Agnes, but that is not important. You can go into an orchard with a list of names and write them on the oranges. Francois and Pierre and Diane and Louis, but what difference does it make? What matters to an orange is its orangeness. The same with me. My name could have been Clementine or Odette or Henrietta, but so? An orange is just an orange, as a doll is a doll. Don't think that once you name a doll, it is different from all other dolls. You can bathe it and clothe it and feed it empty air and put it to bed with all the lullabies you imagine a mother should be singing to a baby. At the same time, the doll, like all dolls, cannot be called dead, as it was never alive. And that was from The Book of Goose by Yi-Yun Lee. Book 3. So I'm actually going to put in a little commentary now, because this is a book that has an unusual beginning, or a couple of unusual segments to the beginning. And the first segment was all about vagabond definitions, which started with wandering and itinerant ones, and then moving to Nigerian slang about transgender people. Finally, this was followed by definitions of sexual gross indecency from a Nigerian perspective. And then we get to this section. A welcome note from the city. There is an eye following you, and you know. Everywhere you go, they look at you. The eye is made up of people. The eye does not blink, talk less of sleep. The eye is us, curious. The eye is a city. The eye na Lagos. Echo. The eye is gossip, a hypocrite. An eye is naturally unfillable, yes, but this is an overpopulated, opinionated, 21 million bodied eye, a famished eye. This is an eye full of lies, full of mouths, full of secrets, full of death. And dem no dey take us play, because we plenty inside this eye. So na amedo we be, busybody, eye service, na. So why they look at you? Na way. Who is judging you? Everyone. Us. Who you pass you? Na well. Who you ask for more even if you give us what we want? Everyone. Us. Who will build your safe house? Ask us again. Who will save your child heart? Can't you see where you are? Who knows your real face? And who can jam the door and make our eye cry? Jam question. Who fit turn and return our eye? Not you, not only you. Are you with me? So if you catch us looking at you, so if you're lucky enough to see our eye on your, better turn you back. Don't look back. Don't pass go. Turn your back. Have mercy on yourself. Straighten your steps. Turn your back. Because if you day wait for us, to turn our own back and start it go, then, my dear, not a weight of the eye go surely kill you. And that was from Vagabonds by Elogosa Asunde. Book 4. Book 1, 1, and the numeral 1. Like many others, I did not see it coming. But William is a scientist, and he saw it coming. He saw it sooner than I did, is what I mean. William is my first husband. We were married for 20 years, and we have been divorced for about that long as well. But because my second husband has died, and his third wife has left him, I have seen more of him this past year. About the time his third wife left him, William found out that he had a half-sister in Maine. He found out on an ancestry website. He had always thought he was an only child, so this was a tremendous surprise for him. And he asked me to go up to Maine for 2 days with him to find her, and we did. But the woman, her name is Lois Bubar. Well, first I met her, and she did not want to meet William, and this made him feel very terrible. Also, on that trip to Maine, we found out things about William's mother that absolutely dismayed him. They dismayed me as well. His mother had come from unbelievable poverty, it had turned out, even worse than the circumstances I had come from. The point is that 2 months after our little trip to Maine, William asked me to go to Grand Cayman with him, which is where we had gone with his mother Catherine many, many years before, and when our girls were small we would go there with them and with her too. The day he came over to my apartment to ask me to go with him to Grand Cayman, he had shaved off his huge mustache and had also cut his full white hair very short. And only later did I realize this must have been a result of Lois Bubar's not wanting to see him, but everything he had learned about his mother. He was 71 years old then, but he, I think, must have been plunged into some sort of midlife crisis, or older man crisis, with the loss of his much younger wife moving out and taking their 10-year-old daughter, and then his half-sisters not wanting to see him, and finding out that his mother had not been who he had thought she had been. So I did that. I went to the Grand Cayman with him for 3 days in early October. And it was odd but nice. We had separate rooms and we were kind to each other. William seemed more reticent than usual, but it was strange for me to see him without his mustache. But there were times when he threw his head back and really laughed. There was a politeness to us that was consistent, so it was a little strange, but nice. But when we got back to New York, I missed him, and I missed David, my second husband, who had died. I really missed them both, David especially. My apartment was so quiet. I am a novelist, and I had a book coming out that fall, and so after our trip to Grand Cayman, I had a great deal of traveling to do around the country, and I did it. This was in late October. I was also scheduled to go to Italy and Germany at the beginning of March, but in early December, it was kind of odd, I just decided I was not going to go to those places. I never cancel book tours, and the publishers were not happy, but I was not going to go. As March approached, someone said, "Good thing you didn't go to Italy, they're having that virus." And that's when I noticed it. I think that was the first time. I did not really think about it ever coming to New York, but William did. And that was from Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout. Book 5. Part 1, 1871. Chapter 1, Carlotta. They'd been arriving that day, the two gentlemen, their boat gliding through the forest of mangroves. The jungle teemed with noises, birds crying out in sonorous discontent, as if they could foretell the approach of intruders. In their huts, behind the main house, the hybrids were restless. Even the old donkey, eating its corn, seemed peevish. Carlotta spent a long time contemplating the ceiling of her room the previous night, and in the morning her belly ached like it always did when she was nervous. Ramona had to brew her a cup of bitter orange tea. Carlotta didn't like when her nerves got the best of her, but Dr. Moreau seldom had visitors. Their isolation, her father said, did her good. When she was little she'd been ill, and it was important that she rest and remain calm. Besides, the hybrids made proper company impossible. When someone stopped at Yuxcoton, it was either Francisco Ritter, her father's lawyer and correspondent, or Hernando Lisdale. Mr. Lisdale always came alone. Carlotta was never introduced to him. Twice she'd seen him walking from afar outside the house with her father. He left quickly. He didn't stay the night in one of their guest rooms. And he didn't visit often anyway. His presence was mostly felt in letters, which arrived every few months. Now Mr. Lisdale, who was a distant presence, a name spoken but never manifested, was visiting, and not only visiting, but he'd be bringing with him a new mayordomo. For nearly a year since Melquitus had departed, the reins of Yuxatun had been solely in the hands of the doctor, an inadequate situation, since he spent most of the time busy in his lab or deep in contemplation. Her father, however, didn't seem much inclined to find a steward. "The doctor, he's too picky," Ramona said, brushing the tangles and knots out of Carlotta's hair. "Mr. Lisdale, he sends him letters, and he says, 'Here's one gentleman, here's another,' but your father always replies, 'No, that one won't do, neither will the other,' as if many people would come here." "Why wouldn't people come to Yuxatun?" Carlotta asked. "It's far from the capital, and you know what they say. All of them, they complain it's too close to rebel territory. They think it's the end of the world." "It's not that far," Carlotta said, though she understood the peninsula only by maps and books where distances were flattened and turned into black and white lines. "It's mighty far. Makes most people think twice when they're used to cobblestones and newspapers every morning." "Why did you come here to work then?" "My family, they picked me a husband, but he was bad. Lazy, did nothing all day. Then he beat me at night. I didn't complain, not for a long time. Then one morning he hit me hard, too hard, or maybe as hard as every other time, but I wouldn't take it any longer. So I grabbed my things and I went away. I came to Yuxatun because nobody can find you here," Ramona said with a shrug. "But it's not the same for others. Others want to be found." And that was from The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Morena Garcia. And finally, Book 6, Part 1, 1, Memphis, 2016. "A year never passes without me thinking of them. India, Erica. Their names are stitched inside every white coat I have ever worn. I tell this story to stitch their names inside your clothes, too. A reminder to never forget. Medicine has taught me, really taught me, to accept the things I cannot change. A difficult-to-swallow serenity prayer. I am not trying to change the past. I am telling it in order to lay these ghosts to rest. You paint feverishly, like Mama, yet you got the steadfastness of Daddy. Your talents surely defy the notion of a gene pool. I watch you now, home from college. That time after graduation when y'all young people either find your way or slide down the slope of uncertainty. You're sitting on the porch, nuzzling the dog, a gray mutt of a pit bull, who was once set out to die after snapping at a man's face. In the 6 years we've had him, he has been more skittish than fierce, as if aware that one wrong look could spell his doom. What I know now is that kind of certainty, dire as it may be, is a gift. The dog groans as you seek the right place to scratch. I wish someone would scratch me like that. Such exhaustion in my bones. I will be 67 this year, but it is time. I am ready to work in my yard, feel the damp earth between my fingers, sit with my memories like one of those long-tailed magpies whose wings don't flap like they used to. These days I wake up and I want to roll right over and go back to sleep for another hour. Yes, it is time. 2 weeks ago I heard the news that India is very sick. I'm not sure what ails her, but I take this as a sign that it's time to head south. I know what it looks like. No, I am not going to save her. No, I don't harbor some fanciful notion that she'll be the first and last patient of my career. I have prayed about that. Please, Lord, reveal her heart to me. I call your name, and you look back through the screen door into the kitchen. You're used to my hovering, though each year you need me less and less, and I mourn the slipping. Soon it will be just me and the dog, an old lady muttering in that rambling, crazy way owners talk to their pets when no one is around. But before we both head into that next chapter, we do need to talk. You and I have always been open with each other. As soon as you were old enough to wonder, I told you everything I knew about your birth parents. I told you how you came into my life, about the gift of our family. And that was from Take My Hand by Dolan Perkis Valdez. Okay, well those definitely were long because I see how far my battery went down. So here are my preliminary thoughts, and I'll just start at the top with book number 1, Either Or by Elif Batuman. And I feel like this was a pretty slow beginning for me. I guess, we're setting up the narrator who is situated in this weird futuristic spaceship, but place in Cambridge, how she describes it. She talks about a relationship with this man Ivan, or person Ivan, or well, I'm just going to assume she, I don't know for sure. And how, you know, there's some tension in the air from that, but she's expecting an email. And then when she ultimately goes in for the email, things pick up a little because he's defensive, so you can see the tension rising. So at the end, I feel like I was intrigued, but it kind of took me a little while to get there. Book number 2, The Book of Goose, is where things kind of start to fall apart for me. You know, this is all just hypothetical talk. This narrator, who we learn near the end is named Agnes, is giving all of these, you know, philosophy points about, you know, well, I don't know, you can't cut an apple with an apple, names don't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. It's slicing into story is supposed to be some sort of metaphor about understanding it, which I don't really understand and don't really care about this sort of language. I want to get to a story and actual characters, and all I really know is that the character's name is Angus, and even that, she's telling me, doesn't really matter, so I am not really intrigued by this one. The same goes for book 3, Vagabonds, which also is just largely philosophical, and of course there's a language component that makes it a little more difficult to get into when you don't know that particular slang. And yeah, once again, you know, it's a book that starts with these weird vignettes. It started with the definitions of like vagabonds and whatever, which I guess centers the story around maybe transgender issues in Nigeria. Maybe I should have read that, rather than this part about a note from the city, which, I don't know. The next part, maybe I should have gone and read the next part, but by this point, you know, I wanted to read the beginning of the book to get a sense of the book, and my sense of the book is that I am not being drawn into a story right now. This is all just a bunch of elaborate setup. Then we get to book 4, which is Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout, and part of that series of books she wrote, of which I've read 2 so far, or 3. I mean, I've read the Olive Kitteridge books, which are the ones I really appreciate the most, and then I've read another one of her books for the Book 2 prize, but not this one, which is told from the perspective of Lucy, who's a novelist, and, you know, she gives a lot of her biography right here. And if I were to complain, and I think this is more a Lucy thing, although, or maybe this is how Strout writes, and maybe I don't remember it, or maybe Olive Kitteridge was more compelling to me than Lucy, but you know, Lucy is so rambling and says the same thing over and over again, and there's a self-centeredness to her. I think I got that more from the last book I read for the Would You Read It challenge, which I think also started in her voice, where she said, I think she was trying to talk about William in that too, but she was mostly talking about herself. And in this case, she's trying to explain how she learned about the coronavirus, and she tells this very elaborate story about, you know, where she and William are in this, you know, crazy happenstance where they learn more about his family, and then, you know, he goes on a bit of a crisis or a journey about that she's part of, and then near the end of that, finally, there's a little bit about the coronavirus, like where maybe she had some foresight because she canceled those trips abroad, but I don't know. It's an elaborate, but I guess that at least there's something of some characters in here, I'll give it that. Then book 5 is getting more interesting again with the Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is one of the books that, you know, I think the title lives on the most in terms of its popularity, so I'm glad that I was intrigued by it, where we're sent to, you know, this historical remote setting, and we learn a bit about Carlotta being the sickly daughter of this doctor who spends his time in a lab, and what's up with these hybrids that also keeps people from visiting them. There's sort of a spooky affectation to that. But then we're also introduced to the idea of some, you know, sudden upset of these visitors, and how the father might be forced to, I don't know, take someone in as a mayordoma or what have you. And so we get a lot in here about these characters and about the location and how it's remote and how most people aren't invested in it. But Carlotta is young and rather naive to that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I think it's pretty intriguing. But I actually think book number 6 is my favorite of the 6, and that's from Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. And this takes us to Memphis in 2016. And there's a little bit of vagueness about it, and a little bit of teasing things out about the narrator telling you a story. And I guess my first assumption is the narrator is like the mother of the you, because the you is described as someone recently out of college, and this narrator well, the major thing it seems like is that she is about to say, I'm going to assume she is about to say goodbye to someone in her life who is ailing, because she's giving herself this mantra of, well, I can't save this person, India, that I'm going south for. And she's building up, trying to tell her daughter, I'm going for this story. And, I just was drawn in, even though, obviously it's more teasing of things than, getting immediately into the story. But I guess I just fell for, this the setup. The language, I think, was just really easy off of the tongue. And yeah, I'd be curious to know who these people are and how they inform the narrator's life. I think that's where I'd say I'd go with it, except, I always end these with what book I would put on my TBR, but really it's rarely going to be any of them because I have so much to read as it is. So that about covers it for me now. I'm going to leave the Goodreads links for all of these books listed down below in case you'd like more information. I also very much want to welcome anyone who has read these books to give their thoughts on the books or your thoughts on these first couple pages or so of the books. I feel like I actually, these were pretty long sections. Got a lot of post-production to do. And in fact, I am working on a new computer. I just got a brand new computer, so I'm very excited and nervous about that, and hopefully this will come out looking pretty good on all that stuff. We'll see. So anyway, speaking of the actual BookTube prize that we're in the middle of judging right now, we are in the very last few days of the Octofinals round, and I have a lot of mad dash reading to do to be able to submit my ballot, so expect me back here in the next couple of days for an AM reading video. Hopefully I'll find some time to squeeze in finishing something I can actually talk about in that video. Stay tuned, we shall see. And in the meantime, well, I hope my fellow BookTube Prize judges are doing well or meeting this deadline, or maybe already have, unlike me. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.